The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Okay, it's Friday, January 23rd. Scott Jennings back in your nation's capital. The world travels of Scott Jennings continue. Got in this morning from Little Rock. Really appreciate Arkansas Right to Life for bringing me down to Little Rock last night for their annual dinner. And it was good to see Governor Sanders there at the state capitol yesterday. Really appreciate everybody who's having us out on the road. It's fun to get out on the road and see America and meet real Americans out there who are making a difference in their communities. The Scott Jennings Show is brought to you by Ease Total Health. Health insurance is broken. Ease fixes it with no deductibles, no restrictions on doctors or hospitals. It's a set of benefits that you can use on day one. It will actually feel like you have coverage, as opposed to probably what you have now, which probably feels like you have nothing at all. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Scott to learn more and find out about Ease Total Health, EASE. A point of personal privilege, a proud dad moment this morning. I've been over at the United States Capitol this morning because my oldest son, Everett, graduated from the U.S. Senate Page program today. He's been working in the Senate since September the 1st, so they do a whole semester, these high school kids. And I was over there at the Capitol with his class as they collected their honors and their certificates. So I just want to congratulate the Senate Page Fall 2025 kids. They graduated. They lived through some historic stuff. They had the longest shutdown in government history and saw all kinds of things on the Senate floor. But you see them on C-SPAN too. The kids out there in their little jackets and they're holding the doors and getting the papers for the senators. Those are the Senate Pages. Those are all high school kids, by the way. And anyway, just wanted to say congrats to Everett and his classmates. Coming up at 33 minutes past the hour today, the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, will join us. We're going to talk about Greenland and other aspects of the president's trip to Davos, also get into energy policy a little bit. 51 minutes past the hour, Congressman Mark Alford of the 4th District of Missouri will come by to talk reconciliation briefly. We will start this hour with the news of the day and with a very special guest joining us, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. He's the congressman from Ohio's 4th District, Jim Jordan. Congressman Jordan, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
Always good to be back with you. Thanks for all the good work you do. And congrats to your son, Everett. I had the chance to meet him a couple weeks ago when you were in town. You could tell, fine young man. And that is a great program. Our daughter, way back when, our oldest daughter, was in the House Page program. And she was just in the summer of the shorter program. But that's a special program. And congrats to your fine son.
Yeah, he's really good. He's a smart kid. Needs a haircut. But other than that, no real complaints from his dad here. Congressman, thanks for joining us. I want to start with playing a clip from the U.S. House yesterday. You conducted a hearing in the Judiciary Committee with Jack Smith, the special counsel who was going after Donald Trump. Let's play cut 13 and hear Congressman Jordan and Jack Smith.
We've gathered in $35 million. And what I want to know is how much of that $35 million of taxpayer money did you give to confidential human sources? We know you gave $20,000 to someone. It just got reported last week. How much more money did you pay confidential people we don't know about, with American tax money going after the guy we elected president?
My recollection regards the $20,000, which was not a payment from me. It was me approving a payment by the FBI to a confidential human source who was reviewing video and photographic.
Who's the source?
I do not know the identity of the source.
How many other payments went to this source or other sources?
As I sit here, I do not know the answer to that question.
Congressman Jordan, Jack Smith didn't have a lot of answers yesterday, and some of the answers he gave were less than satisfactory. What's your reaction to everything you learned yesterday after you've had a day to process it?
Yeah, I mean, in the big picture, Jack Smith was no different than Jim Comey, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis. It was all about this lawfare weaponization out to go get President Trump, and that I think was clear on the specific issue of confidential human sources. I think it's also important to step back and think Did Bob Mueller approve payments to confidential human sources when he was special counsel? Did Robert Hur? Did John Durham? I don't know of any of the special counsels we've ever dealt with where they were paying people in secret, paying for information that if this individual was doing a service or something for the committee party, then just contract with them. Why do you have to do something in secret? And how much money? The fact that you didn't know how much money they spent on this stuff. I think when you spend $35 million going after the president, I think that was an issue as well. But yeah, this whole thing was political. I said that from the very first sentence. I think it was all about politics. It was always about politics and getting President Trump in the run up to the presidential election.
I heard a lot of things. I heard a lot of things in the hearing that, at a minimum, were head scratchers, and at a maximum, really just were shocking. One of them was that Jack Smith, at one point had labeled the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, a flight risk. I mean, is that power run amok? What in the world was that all about?
Yeah, and the whole fact pattern there is kind of scary because Kevin becomes Speaker, I think, as of January 7th, 2023. 16 days later, Jack Smith subpoenas his phone records for a 2-month time period from 2 years prior, and he wants to know, and he can know who Kevin called, who called him, when the call took place, how long it lasted, and he's getting all that information on the top Republican in our government, the guy second in line to the president. I mean, that's scary. And then to add insult to injury, he goes and gets a gag order. He says to the courts, hey, don't let the carrier, AT&T, know that we've just got their customer, the Speaker of the House. We just got his phone logs. We can pattern his life. We know who he talks to before votes, who he talks to after votes, when he calls his family, when he calls colleagues. And you can figure all that out, where he's at when he's making these calls. All that information they have on the top Republican in the government, and they tell the court the reason that we need the gag order on the carrier is because he's a flight risk or he might tamper with witnesses or evidence. And I'm just laughing. He's the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Unbelievable.
This is how crazy they were. But this was all part of their effort. They would go to any length to get the president, including doing that to the Speaker of the House.
And it seemed like Jack Smith was anxious to get the president to trial before the 2024 election. I saw a CNN legal analyst, Ellie Honig, saying there was no way that Jack Smith was preparing, no way a defense attorney could prepare for a trial like that, given the volume of documents. Was Jack Smith rushing to put the president in court to try to keep him from running, keep him off the ballot in 2024?
Exactly. Definitely was. 13 million pages, and he says he files the indictment and then says to the defendant, in this case President Trump, we'd like to be in trial in 4.5 months. Are you kidding? There's no way you can properly. And then he tried to go to the Constitution, the Sixth Amendment, our right as citizens of this great country, the greatest country ever, our right to a speedy trial. And he tried to assert, well, they have a right to the speedy trial is for the defendant. It's for the accused. It isn't for the government, for goodness sake.
Right.
So this idea that the president was going to have to prepare his defense in 4.5 months, but it was driven by politics. They were getting close to the election. They wanted to get to trial, get President Trump tied up in court, or at a minimum, get all the information out there that I think was political in nature relative to the case, so that could impact the campaign. All that, again, driven by the political motivation that they had. I mean, the one thing I focused on, Scott, was Jack Smith said no one could confirm what the Democrat star witness in the January 6th committee, Cassie Hutchinson,
right.
No one could confirm what she said, but Jack Smith was still contemplating putting her on the witness stand at trial. That is how ridiculous this all was and how determined they were to try to figure out some way to get the president.
That voice you're hearing, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, he conducted a big hearing in Judiciary yesterday in the House with Jack Smith. We're going to talk more about that when we come back. And also, I want to get Congressman Jordan's thoughts on what's going on, the ongoing scandals and situation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. First, a quick word from our new friends at Patriot Mobile. If you want to have a mobile company, a wireless company that you can believe in, that believes in the same things that you do as a conservative, you've only got one choice. Patriot Mobile. They're not just a wireless provider. They're an activist organization. Switching is easier than ever. You can activate new service in minutes. Keep your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. I don't care. I just want you to get to Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/Scott, or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Scott. They'll give you a free month. More with Congressman Jim Jordan when we come back. It's Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. Stay with us. Back with more conversation with Congressman Jim Jordan and this hearing with Jack Smith up on Capitol Hill yesterday. Congressman Jordan, one of the spectacles of the hearing was this former Capitol Police officer, Michael Fanone. He was one of the officers from January 6th who's become a political activist and a rather profane one at that. He turned out to be a major nuisance during the hearing. I'm going to play a clip here. This is cut 8, guys. Michael Fanone yelling during the Jack Smith hearing yesterday.
I would like to quickly address the police officers of January 6th. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Fanone, Mr. Gonell, Mr. Hodges. I'm a member of the new select committee to actually examine what happened that day. And I can tell you, gentlemen, that the fault does not lie with Donald Trump. It lies with Yogananda Pittman and the U.S. Capitol leadership team. We know they had the intelligence and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. Claim my time, yeah.
So what you heard there, Congressman Jordan, was Michael Fanone yelling profanities at one of your members on the committee here. We had to bleep it out because we're on terrestrial radio. And then there was a big altercation after all this happened. What did you make of the Fanone engagement with the committee?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that kind of garbage takes place. And you know, whether he got into with some other member in the audience during a break, and then, of course, he does that response to Congressman Nell. By the way, Congressman Nell is a former sheriff. He knows a thing or two about law enforcement. He is on the select committee now, and he was just making a point. I let all members, whether Republican, Democrat, they get to make their point. Congressman Nels is a darn good member who was doing just that, and then to get this reaction from someone in the audience just doesn't make sense. Maybe they don't want to know about the facts, but there were things I think that should have been done by, frankly, the then Speaker of the House, Speaker Pelosi, that weren't done. That could have helped, I think, with that whole day.
Let me shift gears to Minnesota. Obviously, a lot of news every day now about the immigration situation there. We know Governor Walz and Mayor Fry in Minneapolis won't cooperate with immigration. This has all sort of overshadowed something you're looking into, which is the Somali fraud scandal that was exploding before the ICE story hit. What's going on with the Somali fraud investigation? You've had one key hearing. What do we expect next on that front?
Well, we just keep digging and understand that the Justice Department's up there. They've already, I think, indicted like 50-some, 60-some people. Some people have already been convicted, like the folks who ran this Feeding Our Future program where they were supposed to be taking taxpayer dollars and actually giving meals to children. They found out there were no kids and there were no meals. They were just stuffing the money in their pocket. And it looks like that the government officials in the state government, the Attorney General, the governor, and others, weren't just kind of looking the other way, but actually almost assisting with this. When you look at particularly the Attorney General, he had meetings with the leaders of this group. A few weeks after the meetings, they're getting his campaign, getting campaign contributions. So, we're digging into all this, and I appreciate the fact that the Justice Department, federal Justice Department here, and has named a specific person, designated them as the person to examine fraud, both what's going on in Minnesota, but around the country. Is these kind of games being played elsewhere?
One last question. We have about 30 seconds. Are you troubled by these reports that you have these left-wing nonprofits and activist groups funding training for these political vigilantes to go and confront ICE agents? Are we going to see an investigation of where the money is coming from to fund all this radicalism in Minneapolis? Yeah,
we're looking at all this. You think about what happened last Sunday. You got 5 rights under the First Amendment, and the very first one is your right to practice your faith, your freedom of religion. And yet they were in there. These activists were disrupting that. And what they're doing to ICE agents, I mean, they're getting doxxed, they're getting tracked, they're getting spit on, they're getting attacked and harassed while they're trying to enforce the law. One guy got hit with shovels and broomsticks, for goodness sake. So, I think it's important to look who's providing the resources and who's doing the training for these left-wing activists, and that's being kind using that term.
That voice you're hearing today, Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, had a big hearing with Jack Smith yesterday. He's looking into the Somali fraud in Minneapolis and generally doing good work on behalf of the people of Ohio and the American taxpayer. Thank you, Congressman, for coming by. We'll take a break. When we come back, Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior, is here. Talk Greenland and critical minerals. Stay with us. It's common sense for the American people. You know, the world feels more uncertain every day, whether it's what's going on in Venezuela, you've got currency pressures, political chaos in places, the Middle East, Greenland, you name it, international tensions. At home, we have record national debt, we have shifting trade policies, volatile markets reacting to distant events. All of it threatens your portfolio. More Americans are protecting wealth by moving into physical gold and silver, tangible, time-tested assets that hold value amid uncertainty. Preserve Gold helps add them to your portfolio, including IRAs and 401ks. Text the word Scott, S-C-O-T-T, to 50505 for your free wealth protection guide, plus up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Again, text Scott to 50505 and do it today. Welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show, common sense for the American people. Excited about our next conversation. One of the most important parts of our federal government, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, is here. Doug Burgum. Secretary Burgum, welcome back to the show, sir.
Scott, great to be with you, and happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday, my friend. Although I know Friday doesn't mean anything to you because you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I see you out there all the time.
Well, I do, and I'm honored to be working for a president that works 7 days a week for the American people too, and only he doesn't need any sleep. He's quite something.
I know, it's kind of shocking. A guy's like functioning on 3 hours of sleep. I'd be a mess, but not the president. All right, let's talk about the president, Secretary Burgum. He just got back from Davos. And while he was there, one of the biggest stories was this deal that he announced over getting more U.S. control over Greenland. Obviously, he's been making the case that we need control over Greenland for national security purposes. Based on the deal that's been announced by the president, based on the conversations going on with the Europeans, are you satisfied that what the president has worked out is going to be enough to get us what we need for national security purposes on Greenland?
Well, we've never had a deal maker in chief like President Trump, and he knows what's important for the American people. He knows what's important for national security. He knows what's important for our economy. He knows what's important for world peace, and he brings all of the power and capability of the United States to those negotiations. He's always negotiating from strength, not weakness. And in this case, I have every confidence. I mean, when he says we're going to have total access and we have that indefinitely, I'm confident that he's going to get a deal that's great for the security of all Americans. And like we have always been the backbone of NATO, the biggest funder of NATO, it's going to be great for all of our NATO allies as well.
Am I reading this wrong, or did President Trump start out on this Greenland thing offering Denmark and the people of Greenland a boatload of cash, and we wound up getting more control of Greenland than we had, a deal on critical minerals, and we did it for nothing, and that was what they decided to do? Am I reading this incorrect, that Donald Trump basically got us what we wanted and we didn't have to spend any money on it?
Yeah, I think so. And what you're this is the classic thing. Everyone, President Trump, when he gets involved in deal making, he always gets more than everyone thinks is possible. And in this case, I'm certain that he struck a great deal for America. And again, as we look back on this last year, President Trump's his whole strategy around energy dominance, this idea that we're going to be able to, that energy is the backbone of the economy, it's the backbone of national security. And he also understands how the nature of national security is changing because now whether the wars that are going on right now, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, conflict, this is all autonomous. I mean, you're not hearing any stories about pilots being shot down in these wars because it's unmanned versus unmanned, And Greenland, of course, like Alaska, like the shortest route from China and Russia to America is over the North Pole. If we're going to have a Golden Dome that works for America, we've got to have our missile defense, early warning detection on Greenland like we do in Alaska. And, of course, China, with their Belt and Road initiative around the world, they show up, they say, hey, we'll give you a loan, and then they send 20,000 workers that live there permanently. They never leave. In a small place like Greenland with only 50,000 people living there, and Denmark's unable to defend the thing. President Trump's completely right about that. You could wake up one day and find out that either China or Russia has taken it by force. President Trump is not going to let that happen. It's part of the Western Hemisphere. It's critical to the defense of the United States of America, and he's working on all the right things to do it. And at the same time, back home, inflation's down, gas prices are way down, mortgages down, border crossings zero, regulations down, taxes down, murder rates down, and job growth, paychecks, investment in America, and energy production all at record highs. So, he's delivering on an agenda where with the energy dominance, when we can sell energy to our friends and allies around the world, including Europe, we're the biggest supplier. We've displaced 2/3 of Russian gas going into Europe. He's calling the shots. He's calling the shots because they need us. They need us not only for protection, they need us to get their homes heated through the winter. Otherwise, they're buying from Russia.
Let's talk about the energy piece that you just referenced. Obviously, the administration under your leadership and the president's leadership made a lot of executive branch changes. There was some energy deregulation done in the big, beautiful bill last summer. House Republicans have just started a budget reconciliation plan, Budget Reconciliation 2.0, if you will, up on Capitol Hill. What do you want to see them do further on energy policy in this next round of budget reconciliation, which, by the way, can pass the House and the Senate with Republican votes only? That's the reason they're doing it.
Well, a key thing is going to be permitting reform and just cutting this massive red tape. China, who we're in a competition with AI arms race, we're in a competition with them with critical minerals. We're in a competition with them on who can generate the most electricity to power, the future of an AI-driven economy, advanced manufacturing, manufacturing intelligence, all the things it requires energy. We were under the Biden administration. We were on a path of energy subtraction. It was not energy transition. They called it transition. There was no transition. It was we're going to shut down base load and replace it with intermittent, taxpayer-subsidized, highly unreliable wind and solar. And we'll, in the parts of the country where that progressive agenda on where extreme ideology around concern over 1 degree of climate change in the year 2100 was driving the policies of governors and state legislators. Those people have higher electric prices than the rest of the country. They have higher gas prices than the rest of the country. So pricing is not uniform across our nation because politics drives policy and policy drives pricing when it comes to energy. And we've had pro-energy, pro-growth states, and we've had anti-energy states. President Trump's trying to fix all that for everybody. We're certainly making progress, but on relative to Congress, we've got to have permitting reform. We've got to get back to building great things in America and building them quickly. When the original Alaska pipeline was built, it's 800 miles long. It crosses 4 mountain ranges. It's been a godsend to national security and American economy, and it's been operating safely for over 50 years. That was built, Scott, in 28 months. When we took office a year ago, we met with people, and they said it's going to take us 5 to 10 years to get the permits. And, of course, China, last year built 93 gigawatts of coal in 1 year. They're building 86 gigawatts this year. 1 gigawatt runs Denver, runs all of Utah. I mean, it is. Right. We're up against a country that just decides to build stuff and they do it. Their country is run by engineers. Our country, we're overwhelmed by lawyers. We graduated 36,000 lawyers last year in America and only 300 people in mining and metallurgical degrees. And that's why we're so far behind in the critical minerals thing. So part of President Trump's agenda and what we need the support from legislature is to get the permitting. We can protect the air, the water, the soil health. We can do all that. And it shouldn't take a decade or two to get a permit.
Let me ask you about the critical minerals. You just raised that topic, and you've been working diligently on this. I want to drill down on exactly what that means. How much of these critical minerals can we get out of the ground in the United States? How much of it do we have to get overseas? And are these things really that rare? People call them rare earth minerals, or is it just the processing of them that's rare? Give us a little insight into where we sit with these critical rare earth mineral conversations.
Well, you're spot on, Scott, because the minerals often exist in lots of different places. We have a lot of them. If you take our resources that we have in America, our onshore, our offshore, throw in Alaska, we've got a lot of rare earth or critical minerals that we have access to here, but they call them rare because they would be in parts per million. It wasn't like you'd find a spot and there'd be a high concentration, you dig in one spot. But if you take example like the coal that exists in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, it's got some of the highest concentrations of gallium and germanium. These are critical rare earth minerals that you need for defense, you need them for cell phones, you need them for automotive. And it makes sense to process them if you're also using the coal to produce thermal electricity. It wouldn't make sense if you said, okay, I've got to go through, 1 million tons of coal to get 10 tons of germanium, then it wouldn't be economic. So part of it is the parallel processing where you're extracting multiple minerals out of the same process, and the same thing can happen in a lot of our mining. We got ourselves out where we're buying uranium from Russia at the time to run the nuclear plants in this country for nuclear electricity. I mean, crazy dependence on our adversaries, but you can get into a uranium mine, find lots of other rare earth minerals that may be co-located, but we have to have the refining. We've got to get back in the refining. China controls 85 to 100% of the refining of the top 20 most essential critical rare earth minerals that we need for our economy. So when President Trump says refining is rare, it's rare in the U.S. because we killed it. We strangled all that refining with regulations.
A note for the sportsmen in the audience. I noticed an announcement from you this week, Secretary Burgum, that you are expanding hunting and fishing opportunities on public lands. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, absolutely, and we had a policy that was, I think, a little bit inverse, which is sort of things are closed unless we tell you differently. These are public lands, so whether we've got, our U.S. Fish and Wildlife lands, our Bureau of Land Management lands, are all of the lands that we manage. It's 500 million acres of surface that we manage. Now, some of those are going to be closed to hunting, like a national park. But yeah, with special permits, you can fish in our national parks. Hunting generally closed. But on all these other lands, we basically said, unless specified otherwise, they're going to be open, as opposed to unless specified other, they're going to be closed. When we get our sportsmen out, on our lakes, our rivers, and we get sportsmen out in our woods and on our grasslands, they're the best conservationists we have in this country. You can name 100 organizations on everything from Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation. All of these folks are the ones that make the biggest contributions to habitat restoration and supporting our wildlife. So the hunters and anglers are key to conservation in this country and that habitat. So we want to use the public lands to create more opportunities for them. When they do that, they do more support to help make sure that the generations to come are still going to have access to hunting and fishing in America.
That voice you're hearing on the show today, Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum. Mr. Secretary, thanks for coming by. And also, thanks for what you and the national parks are doing to get us ready for America 250. I think it's going to be a great celebration. I know you have a huge part of that, and we appreciate your work on that.
Well, it is going to be, and I saw that your New Year's resolution was to visit a national park this year, and we've got a suggestion for you. Come to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, the only park named after a person instead of a place. After Theodore Roosevelt and the incredible work that he did, and attend the grand opening of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library Museum and outdoor experience that's going to go there right at the entrance to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and where, in Medora, North Dakota, in the beautiful Badlands. So
one of my favorite places, and as luck would have it, I already got my invitation. I already RSVP'd, and I am planning to broadcast this radio show from the opening of that great facility out there. So I appreciate the hospitality on it, and I cannot wait to get back to Medora. It's one of the most beautiful places in America.
And it is an official Freedom 250, America 250 event, you're going to be in the right spot when that's happening, Scott. Thanks for being there, and thanks for all you do fighting for common sense in this country. I know your listeners appreciate it, and I sure do.
Secretary Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior, thanks for joining us today. When we come back, Congressman Mark Alford is here. We'll talk Capitol Hill stuff. It's Common Sense on Salem. Stay with us. Here's some common sense for you. If you're living with daily aches and pains, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? You don't have to. There are options out there. One of those options that thousands of people all over this country have gotten into is called Relief Factor. We get stories and testimonials, by the way, from people who use Relief Factor. One is from Sharon. She says she'd been hearing about Relief Factor on the radio for a couple of years, and she was thinking about it, finally decided to try it because nothing else was helping her back pain. She does the 3-week quick start. She just went for it, she says, and quote, now I feel like a new person. That's her own words. It's very gratifying to hear when you're asking your audience, like I am, to try something out. It's very gratifying to me to be able to bring you the testimonial of someone who's just like you, saying, yes, try this, and it may just be the answer for you. You can try it yourself. As I said, they have a 3-week quick start plan. I think it's a game changer. You go on relieffactor.com or you call 1-800-4RELIEF. Very simple. They send you 3 weeks supply of this. I do not believe that you'll regret it. 1-800-4RELIEF or go to relieffactor.com. Ask yourself this question. How would it feel to be out of pain? You may find out if you try Relief Factor. On the line with us, closing out hour number 1, Congressman Mark Alford, representing Missouri's 4th Congressional District. He's a member of the Appropriations Committee. He's also in the Republican Study Committee. Congressman Alford, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the work that you do bringing truth to America. I think you are unparalleled right now on the national media landscape. And as a former broadcaster, I don't give out compliments too much.
Well, I'm flattered by your compliments and appreciate your service as well in Missouri. I love Missouri, by the way. I'm from far west Kentucky, so Missouri was always a frequent destination for me as a kid. Still go over there a lot. I want to get right to our interview, sir. You are part of the Republican Study Committee. You all are working on this new budget reconciliation plan. You've also been working on, in the House Republican Conference, something remarkable. All 12 government funding bills have been completed by the House Republican majority despite these thin majorities. It's a miracle. It is a miracle. Government is actually functioning as it is supposed to in the House under Republicans. Tell us about it.
Scott, thank you for that question. And I'm glad we're actually starting out with this because I'm so proud of the work that we're doing and have done and will continue to do on the Appropriations Committee. Listen, folks, listening right now, this is the way that government should operate. No more omnibuses, no more government shutdowns, no more continuing resolutions, hopefully. We get 12 appropriation bills out of committee. We get them passed on the House floor, send them over to the Senate. We reconcile the differences and then vote on it and send it to the president's desk. We did that yesterday. And, Scott, we have not done that since 1997, 29 years of a wayward mission for Congress, and we're back on the right track thanks to the leadership of our Appropriations Chair, Tom Cole, a master negotiator, but also a person who delegates responsibility to the sub-chairmans and individual members of the Appropriations Committee. And you can't forget the leadership of Mike Johnson, our fearless Speaker of the House.
Magic Mike came through again.
Scott, they said we could not get the one big beautiful bill done. We did it. They said we couldn't get all these 12 appropriation bills done. We did it. Yes, we had to fight the Democrats. They shut down the government. We could have done this before the end of the year, but we did our job. And when we get back in February, we begin on the 2027 appropriations package. Here's a couple of things we need, though, Scott. We've got to have the president's budget, okay? Yep. He got it to us in June. I understand it's a new administration, but please, we need a budget. We also need a top-line number. And then we will begin our hearings in February, and we're going to get our work done.
Yeah, what is and again, when things go right in Washington, nobody covers it. When things go wrong, everybody wants to talk about it. What is miraculous here is that you've got the Republicans with effectively a one-seat majority, but that's not even really a majority because of Massey, and yet you're still getting regular order back on the menu here. I mean, almost 30 years we haven't done this correctly, and you guys pulled it off, and you're going to do it again under the leadership of this speaker. Congressman Alford, thanks for coming on the show. We have to get to the top of the hour break. I want to have you back and continue these Washington conversations, so come back and see us soon. When we come back, it is time for Friday afternoon punditry, hour number 2 of the Scott Jennings Show. Coming up after this, it's Common Sense for the American People, right here on Salem. Stay with us. Hey, it's Scott Jennings. You know, depending on where you live, crime may be skyrocketing, and you may already own a firearm. But before you face the financial, legal, and emotional weight of pulling the trigger, there's a smarter option. It's called Byrna. That's B-Y-R-N-A. Byrna makes a less lethal launcher that fires tear gas and kinetic rounds designed to stop an attacker for up to 40 minutes. That gives you time to escape and call for help without deadly consequences. Their best-selling compact launcher is sleek, slim, and incredibly powerful. It's about the size of a smartphone, and it is ideal for concealed carry. It's comfortable, discreet, and confidence-building. It fires at 400 feet per second with serious stopping power, enough to shut down a threat fast without the legal and moral complexity of lethal force. Byrna is proudly American. Over 80% of the components are U.S. sourced. Every Byrna launcher is hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. With over 750,000 of these things sold worldwide, Byrna is best in class. It's legal in all 50 states. No background checks. Comes right to your door. Learn more at Byrna.com, Byrna.com.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Okay, hour number 2 on Friday, January 23rd. Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. Scott Jennings Show, as you know, is brought to you by Ease Total Health. You know, health insurance is in the news a lot lately. The news is not good. Costs are up, deductibles are up, premiums are up. Runaway health insurance costs in Washington and runaway health insurance costs at your kitchen table are killing everyone. But I have good news about health care and health insurance, and I will share it to you. It is called Ease Total Health. I really believe in these guys. It is not traditional insurance. It is much better than that. It is a set of benefits that you and your family can use on day one. There are no deductibles. There are no restrictions on what doctors or hospitals that you can choose. It'll actually feel like you have insurance again. Right now, there may be a chance you don't even feel like you have insurance at all, despite all the massive premiums that you pay. Ease Total Health has a range of options to fit every budget and every need. I cannot list them all, but I would suggest you do yourself a favor and visit easeforeveryone.com/Scott, or do it the old-fashioned way. Call them up, 888 EASE123. Check it out for yourself. Don't wait for the government or big insurance to come to your rescue, because they won't. Go to easeforeveryone.com/Scott or call 888-EASE123. Common Sense for the American people here on Friday, January 23rd, and it's time for Friday Punditry. Joining us now on the show, my friend Lydia Moynihan, correspondent with the New York Post and host of the New York Next podcast. Lydia covering stories at the intersection of Washington, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and you name it, and has been a welcome presence, I might add, at the 10 o'clock debating table on CNN. Lydia Moynihan, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
So glad to be here with you. And I hope all of your listeners know that you are the nicest, friendliest, kindest person on that show, despite being a bit of a celebrity now.
Well, I'm glad that you think that, because as you know, Chris Cuomo from News Nation is trying, I think he's trying to beat me up personally, and he's encouraging others to beat me up. And I'm like, what did I ever do to you, Chris Cuomo, other than become, I guess we're sort of the object of envy for Chris Cuomo. The problem with Chris Cuomo is that it's sort of difficult to watch someone grappling with the loss of their own relevance. And that's what's happened to Chris Cuomo. So then he goes after people who actually have relevant opinions like you and me, Lydia. So it's pretty sad and pathetic what low-rated news anchor Chris Cuomo has to say, but I guess we'll leave it there. Lydia, I want to get to some stories and get your comment on some things, and I'm going to start with this despicable smear that's going on. These Democrats out smearing ICE agents, claiming that they had detained a 5-year-old boy in Minneapolis. Of course, this turned out to be a total lie, a total hoax. Actually, let's do this. Let's play a clip of Vice President Vance from yesterday, and I want to get your comment on this whole thing, Lydia. Here's cut number 6, J.D. Vance on the Democrat hoax around the 5-year-old in Minneapolis.
I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind law enforcement, and I'm proud of the fact that we're enforcing the country's laws. But, you asked a question about this 5-year-old kid. I actually saw this terrible story while I was coming to Minneapolis. We just left Toledo, Ohio this morning for an economic messaging event. And I see this story, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy. And I think to myself, oh, my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien. And then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense.
Lydia, it seems to me that Democrats and media are running the same playbook on Minneapolis they ran in Gaza. Let's make up some propaganda stories about children and try to affect public opinion. You scratch the surface on these things and you realize it's all a hoax, but by the time you do, half of America's already decided we're out arresting 5-year-olds. What do you make of it?
Exactly. I mean, a lie can spread around the world, come back before the truth has even laced up its boots. And that's what's so frustrating, is that it does feel like a hoax. It's all about the severity of the accusation. And it's funny, I first saw this story kind of checking Instagram, and all of my friends were posting it with the crying emojis and the broken hearts. And at first you see the headline and JD walks through. This is sort of the process I feel like we go through for almost every single story when it comes to illegal immigration and deportations. As you see the headline, you think, wait, that's terrible. And then you literally look past the first sentence and you're like, oh, okay, no, literally ICE was stepping in and making sure that a 5-year-old didn't freeze. But it doesn't matter, because there are millions of crying white women out there who are posting about how devastating it is. And it's this stage one thinking where they see, oh, it's a sad image of a boy, therefore we just need to protest ICE, stop the deportations. And that's why it feels very intentional on the part of the media and the left, is that it doesn't matter, even if they were to issue a retraction at this point, millions of people have seen it and they're never going to know the truth. And it is scary that we're living in these sort of information silos where there are people who probably will forever think that little boy was arrested and detained by ICE. There are people who are going to think the other lies, like Kristi Noem deported veterans, but of course we know actually those veterans self-deported. And so it's really tough to have a conversation and convey a message when people either don't want to be reached or they can't be reached.
Yeah, what's crazy about these kinds of situations, Lydia, is that once the left decides what the hoax or the narrative is going to be, they get this stuff out so fast, and they're very authoritarian in their communication strategy. They get it out to all their members of Congress. They get it out to all their pundits. They get it out to all the news anchors. And you hear them all repeating it ad nauseum all day long in broadcast media, on social media. No amount of debunking, no amount of, hey, here are the facts, no amount of actual information can shake them from the operation. And that's all that it is. It's an op. It's an op against the American people. So now for time immemorial, everybody in the Democratic Party, everybody on the left will believe that DHS is out arresting 5-year-olds. Even though you and I know it's not true, even though the listeners of this show know it's not true, you're going to have one entire political party taking that as an article of faith. They do this all the time. It's rather insidious. How can you trust people with governing responsibility who are that committed to hoaxes and lies all the time?
Right. No, and these people are voting. But one thing that I would note that I think the left does so well is, I think it was Stalin who said, 1 death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic. And they're very good at finding these photos. It doesn't matter, again, in Trump's first term, it was photos from the Obama administration of children in cages that went viral. But the left is really good at kind of telling stories and telling narratives. And, what's lost, of course, is that actually the Biden administration lost literally hundreds of thousands of children, and the Trump administration has actually found tens of thousands of children who were just completely lost here in the interior of the U.S., never showed up to their immigration appointments. No one knew where they were, and the Trump administration has actually found thousands of those kids. But that's a statistic, right? That's not going to make a headline in the same way that a photo of a little cute boy with a backpack and his blue hat is going to shake people. And so I think they do a really good job of that. And I think the right needs to figure out how do we counter that? Because they're really smart about having propaganda that pulls at the heartstrings. And on the right, a lot of people are like, oh, but look at the statistics, and it's,
we saw
insane
it.
You look
we saw it in we saw it in Gaza. They had the propaganda photos of the kids. That was all made up. And, you had every newspaper in the English-speaking world running those photos. You see it with this kid. There was, in the first term, there was a famous Time magazine cover. We'll talk more about this with Lydia Moynihan from the New York Post when we come back. I do want to get in a quick word from our friends at Done with Debt. If you're stressed out about getting out of debt, you need to listen to me now. According to the Fed, many banks are tightening their standards. That means this may be, right now, your best window to negotiate a debt settlement before these standards get tightened up any further. Done with Debt is one of the best that we have ever seen here at Salem at navigating debt relief. Last year, they did over $100 million for their customers, our listeners here. Done with Debt. They track all this. They know what to do, when to do it. They know how to assess your personal situation. And by the way, calling them up to get that assessment is absolutely free. It just takes a few minutes. Go to donewithdebt.com and talk to one of their specialists. You could, again, that is free. Get the assessment for free. And I think if you're in debt and you want some relief, Done with Debt might be able to help you find the relief you're looking for. More with Lydia Moynihan from the New York Post. It's Friday Punditry here on the Scott Jennings Show. Stay with us. And we are dispensing common sense to the American people here on Friday, January 23rd. My friend Lydia Moynihan from the New York Post is here. By the way, Lydia, I want everybody to see the amazing video clips of you on CNN. You're doing such a great job in your cable TV appearances. Where do we find you on the X platform, Lydia?
That is incredibly high praise coming from you. It is LJ Moynihan. So, and I will have more clips tonight, dropping around midnight.
Tonight, I will look for you tonight. I'm going to pop over after the radio show today and do with Casey Hunt. I'm going to get back to Kentucky tonight because I got to beat this weather. I got to get back before it starts snowing. Somebody's got to take care of the chickens back at the Jennings homestead. I'll be out there with a shovel, shoveling out the area around the coop and taking care of the girls in the backyard. All right, another story I want to bring up with you, Lydia. Murders plummeted more than 20% this last year. The single largest one-year drop on record. 2025 might be the lowest murder rate in the United States since 1900. Lydia, what, pray tell, happened in 2025 that caused all this crime to magically go away in the United States?
I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. Was there anything significant?
Something happened. Something happened, Lydia. What was it? I'm thinking back on 25. What was different about 25 than 20? Something happened.
Frey got reelected. That's probably it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Honorary Somali pirate Jacob Frey.
This is such an incredible statistic. But like I was saying, we're talking about it. We love the numbers. And yet this isn't the viral image that the Democrats are so good at finding and oftentimes lying about to pull at people's heartstrings. But, I mean, this is absolutely incredible. And I think the Trump administration, come midterms, there are so many good things like this that they can point to. And I think we just need to make sure how we market it. We get the statistics and we get the emotional image.
Yeah, that's the thing. Murder rate is down. Carjackings are down. Shoplifting is down. I mean, there's something to be said, honestly, for attitude in government. I mean, that the attitude set at the top, like, are we going to tolerate lawlessness in our country? Are we going to tolerate an open border? Are we going to tolerate being taken advantage of by other countries? So, obviously policy and decisions and personnel go into all this, but it really starts with an attitude. And with the Biden people and with the Democrats, the attitude is, well, we can't really enforce the law on any of these fronts. And with Trump, he's like, no, we're going to enforce the law. And by the way, we're going to give cover to people who want to enforce the law. If you want to go out and enforce the law, if you want to cooperate with us, if you want to actually stand up for law-abiding taxpayers, we have your back. You never really had that assurance in the Biden years.
That's such a good point, right? It's all about the boots on the ground. And I think seeing J.D. Vance go and actually support the ICE agents who have been totally smeared, but standing with them and saying, I celebrate and I applaud you, right? And at the same time, you see Eric Swalwell, who's running for California governor, threatening that if he is elected, that no ICE officer will ever be able to be on the California payroll, which is kind of ironic because if you think about all the people on the California payroll, many of them are illegal immigrants and people who've been convicted of crimes. But
of course,
officers, that is a bridge too far. So I think you're
what's crazy
about starts at the top all the way down.
Of course. You know what's crazy? Every year now on January 6th, we have to live through the national memorial of January 6th set forward by Democrats and media. And they go out and they have a candlelight vigil and they talk all about the brave, standing up for the brave Capitol Police. By the way, I love the Capitol Police. I love all police. Yeah. January 7th comes around and it's Democrats. They're the Gestapo. We're never going to let ICE work in California. These people should be confronted in the streets. Hit them with your cars. So one day a year, Lydia, we get Democrats talking about how much they love the police. 364 days a year, they're being compared to Nazi Germany. Lydia Moynihan from the New York Post. Look her up. Watch her on television. She's a good writer. You're a good writer, but you're great on TV. Lydia, we love having you. Come back to the show soon, and I'm sure I'll see you over at CNN in the near future.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, Scott. You're the best.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Lydia. When we come back after this break, my old buddy, also from CNN, Michael Singleton is here for more Friday punditry. It's common sense for the American people. You're here on Salem. By the way, I have to tell you, Patriot Mobile, I was talking about them earlier, and I just need to go back to this one more time. Patriot Mobile, if you're looking for a wireless service, Patriot Mobile is the wireless service for you. Not only do they give you premium service, patriotmobile.com, by the way, they also invest in your values. You pay your bill, these guys get involved in conservative Christian causes. They're unabashed about it. Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com. Look them up. More to come with Michael right after this. January 23rd, home stretch, Friday punditry here. Common sense for the American people. My friend from CNN, Michael Singleton, joins us in just a moment. He's waiting, chomping at the bit to get into some Friday punditry is Michael. First, a quick story from our partners at Child Help. It's a story they see all too often. It starts as a game, kids logging on after school, talking with friends, having fun. Then someone else joins the conversation. At first, it doesn't feel wrong. Compliments, curious questions, someone paying attention. But over time, it becomes personal, then private, then secret, and eventually uncomfortable. That's how online grooming works. It's not force, it's trust. By the time a child realizes something is wrong, they are scared. They're scared to tell their parents. They're scared of getting in trouble. They're scared of losing their devices and their friends. This is where our partners at Child Help step in. Child Help teaches kids how to recognize grooming before it turns into abuse, and it helps parents spot the warning signs early. They remind kids that secrets about bodies are not okay. They help families act when something isn't right. This isn't about fear. It's about preparation. For just $27, you can help protect a child from abuse. Text Child Help to 94878 or donate at childhelp.org/Scott. And I'm just going to tell you, I donate to Child Help. I personally visited their headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. I've met with the executives of this charity. These people take contributions. They spend the money on the kids. They run the National Child Abuse Hotline. They have these grooming tools. Child Help. If you want to help kids and save them from abuse, Child Help is the place to put your money if you care about keeping kids safe. I encourage you to do what I do. Support Child Help today. Joining me now to wrap up the week, my friend and fellow CNN contributor, co-founder of We the Free and Guns Out TV, Mr. Shermichael Singleton is on the line. Shermichael, welcome back to the show.
Scott, thanks for having me, man. You are the man of the moment. Every single person in Las Vegas at SHOT Show, the governors, the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, all asking, Sherm, how's Scott doing? How's Scott doing? You are loved.
Well, people might be worried. People are worried about me, Shermichael, because Chris Cuomo is trying to beat me up right now. It's all over the news, this freaking guy out here trying to beat yours truly up for unbelievable.
Just let him know you have a friend named Shermichael Singleton. You'll be okay.
Oh, I know. And the reason I know that, I saw video of you this week, Shermichael, shooting guns. And also this week, you were in Las Vegas at the annual SHOT Show. Big show out there for Second Amendment and firearms enthusiasts. Tell us about your experience out there at the SHOT Show. I know so many people who were out there.
Yeah, this is my fifth one. It is the industry-leading firearms event by NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation. They are the trade organization for the firearms industry. And this was the first year we were there with We the Free, with our network, since officially launching. And I got a chance to see so many old friends, new gun companies. Entrepreneurship is a big thing in our country, and a lot of people are trying to get involved in the firearms industry. And I had a chance to sit down with Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Haven't seen her in a long time. I've known her since my days with Dr. Carson. That was awesome. I got to sit down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Got to talk to incoming Director of the ATF, Rob Cicada. So it was a wonderful event, Scott. And what I have to say to your audience is that the Second Amendment is important to the foundation of our country. There would be no America without the right to keep and bear arms. And I had the chance to interview 7 Republican governors during the NSSF's annual Governors Forum. And these guys are committed to protecting Americans' rights to keep themselves safe from a tyrannical government and thugs on the street attempting to cause harm against good people.
Well, I'm glad you were out there, and you're one of the greatest advocates for the Second Amendment in the country, and you are not just unabashed about your views on the Second Amendment, you live it, and you also are one of the foremost information hubs with your different media properties for gun training, gun safety, teaching people how to use firearms safely, and I think you have reached so many people. Tell me, by the way, about We the Free. The last time you were on, you were just getting this off the ground. How is We the Free going? How's the media subscription property going?
It's going really well, Scott. So since launching April 15th, we're now at nearly 7,000 paid subscribers. That's between annual, which is $8.99 a month, or monthly $8.99 a month, and annual $59.99 a month. We just officially launched a big partnership with the National Rifle Association, the NRA, a couple of days ago. We are very, very excited about that partnership and what it means for the NRA as they move in a new and healthier direction and try to reach younger gun owners, but also what it means for the network in terms of giving us the type of historic, traditional credibility that any new startup would yearn for. And so we're looking forward to having a slew of new partnerships with major manufacturers coming the rest of this year. And man, I'm happy to be in a place, in a country where people love and value firearms, where people want to find an informational hub that's entertaining, that's training, that's also conservative news, that's gun news. We're building it, and the people are saying, Shermichael, we're going to support you because we no longer want to deal with being sanctioned by YouTube and big tech and liberal Democrats. We had enough of that. We want to build our own, and the people are coming, Scott.
I love that. Well, I'm glad to hear about the success for We the Free. You and I were discussing this the other day. All of the media content on We the Free, you're producing. This is not licensed stuff. This is not canned stuff. You all at the company are actually producing all of this. It's a lot of work that you're putting into these. And the productions are really high end. You go on We the Free, the stuff's really good.
Scott, we spend so much time and a lot of capital trying to produce content that you can't find anywhere else. And for so long, the firearms community has really struggled, Scott, to have a place for our content to live. Manufacturers have struggled to put content to reach potential consumers. And by the way, if you're a gun company, Scott, you can't run ads on social media at all. And so we're trying to create something that serves three groups. One being the manufacturers, two being the firearms creators, because they take what the manufacturers produce, they make it cool, they test it out, they put it out there for the consumer. Then for the consumer, we want them to be able to find things that they care about, whether it's ballistics, whether it's ammunition, different types of firearms, and also stuff that they can be entertained by to keep the Second Amendment alive for generations to come.
Sure, Michael, I want to ask you about a couple of Second Amendment-related stories for our Friday punditry here. There is an interesting case going up to the Supreme Court related to gun rights. It's out of Hawaii. I think specifically there are private property issues involved. Are you following this case, and how do you think it'll go? What can you tell our listeners about this case at the Supreme Court?
I have been following this case, Scott, and this is a major, major case. Now, what I'm wondering is when the Supreme Court issues its ruling, which I believe the state will lose, I'm wondering if it will be specific to Hawaii only or if it will be written in a broad way for national implications, which would be significant, and I'm hoping it's the latter of the two. The Supreme Court, if you listen to the oral arguments, they basically cast doubt on Hawaii's bans on guns on private property. For example, if you go in a restaurant in Hawaii, they're basically saying you can't bring a firearm and carry it concealed. So if some nut job decides to come into the restaurant because he got fired, or maybe it's some person who shouldn't be there and decides to cause harm to you or anyone in the restaurant, you are a sitting duck. And what the Supreme Court is saying, wait a minute here, you mean to tell us that a person has no right once they walk into an establishment off the street to defend themselves? So the right to defend ends once they're in a restaurant or any other public building? That makes zero sense logically. And the court, again, was very, very skeptical. I think the state's going to lose. I'm hopeful that the ruling is extremely broad, because that means that there are implications in Washington, D.C., where we have to go to work, which has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. It's time to strike all of that nonsense down.
Yeah, I'm looking at the SCOTUS blog website here. The case, by the way, is Walford v. Lopez, and according to the reporting, virtually all of the court's 6 Republican appointees seem to agree with the challengers to the law, which requires that gun owners obtain express permission from the property owner. And so your expectation is they're going to strike that down. Chief Justice Roberts suggested in this reporting that recent cases show that the Second Amendment has unfairly been a disfavored right. And, you know, when I hear you talk about gun companies not being able to advertise, and, you know, there's just sort of an anvil put on the head of people in this industry. I mean, it is the Second Amendment in our Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms, and yet we treat it like it is somehow a lesser right or out of favor, even though it is literally enshrined in our national governing documents. It seems like this court's going to try to turn that around.
No, I think they are, and I'm happy. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights are clear. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed. This is one particular thing I feel so strongly about, Scott, that I do not compromise on at all. I have no room to compromise as it pertains to the Second Amendment, because we have seen in this country what occurs when the government has the upper hand. I'll give an example. When radical Democrats in the South, and you just talked about this on CNN in a debate with Julie Regency, you know, the Democrats were the pro-segregation party. When those guys and gals during that time wanted to have control over black Americans in the South, Scott, they made it almost impossible for any black person to own a gun. Well, why would they do that? Because they don't want you to have the means to defend yourself. Well, fast forward several decades later, you have the same radical ideology coming from Democrats that do not want the American people to be able to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. And to make it, and to go even further, they're making arguments using the black code laws from the South. these are the arguments coming from Hawaii, Scott. And I couldn't believe that Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, look, she made history. I get it. People have their thoughts about her. But she actually acknowledged that argument. I was baffled by that.
It was crazy. That, the last couple of weeks, Michael, at the Supreme Court have been absolutely wild. You go back also to the arguments that happened the other day about the transgender sports case. The ACLU showed up over there. They couldn't even define, what the gender is, what a woman is in front of the court. It's been weird, but it's been revealing. In front of the court and in front of Congress, the left right now, some of the arguments they're making on civil rights, the arguments they're making on gender, the arguments they're making on Second Amendment, they're really revealed right now. And I hope the American people are paying attention. Shermichael Singleton is my special guest for Friday Punditry. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more questions for Shermichael. Plus, we'll ask Shermichael who won the week. First, a little news about aches and pains. I want to share with you a comment from a satisfied customer of Relief Factor. This is the drug-free supplement that has, for thousands and thousands of people, relieved their everyday pain. We have taken the time to talk to real-life customers of Relief Factor, and we're going to share their real stories about how Relief Factor worked for them. Today we hear from Brian from Alabama. Roll the tape.
Hello, my name is Brian Delatry, and I started taking Relief Factor just about a year ago. I was having chronic knee pain over time. It just got worse and worse. Just walking downstairs was painful. Well, since I've taken Relief Factor, the results have been just amazing. I actually walk 4 miles a day, 5 to 6 days a week. No pain at all going downstairs. Very active playing golf, and it's been really just unbelievable in the change I've had in the pain in my knee. Hope that someone who's experienced the same type of pain gives Relief Factor a try. And I guarantee if you get the results that I have, you'll be very happy. I'm going to continue using the product because I am now pain-free.
Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Launch your 3-week quick start today. If it worked for Brian, it could work for you. More with Shermichael Singleton on Friday Punditry. It's common sense for the American people. Stay with us. Home stretch, Friday, January 23rd. Boy, it's been a week for me. All over this country, New York City, Washington, D.C., California, Little Rock, Arkansas, back in your nation's capital today, bouncing around America like a ping pong ball. God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll get home to Kentucky tonight after we finish this show. And I guess, Shermichael, I gotta get over to the office by 4 o'clock today and do some Casey Hunt punditry on CNN at 4, and then back to the airport. Man, there's no rest for the weary. All right, Shermichael Singleton is our special guest, CNN conservative pundit, and noted Second Amendment enthusiast and defender. Shermichael, we have a tradition here on Friday Punditry. We ask our special guest pundit, who is the winner of the week? Tell us, who won the week in politics?
Who won the week are Republicans and the Second Amendment, because there are Republican governors with the help of the Trump administration, Deputy AG Todd Blanche, AG Harmy Dillon at the DOJ, who are protecting this foundational right.
All right. Republicans are the winner of the week. But, it is kind of interesting, by the way. We were discussing this the other day. What's going on in Virginia, by the way, with Second Amendment issues and other issues. Man, when Democrats get power, they really reveal themselves. And the new governor of Virginia is supposedly a moderate. That's how they pitched it in the campaign. There's no moderation over, and you live in Virginia, there's no moderation over there at all.
There's no moderation, Scott. She lied, and the mainstream media that defended her lied. This woman, let me just give your audience a quick example of what's coming. 13 new gun-grabbing bills, $500 stamp on suppressors, despite the fact that President Trump just signed a law bringing that to $0. Banning on AR-15s, which they call assault rifles, banning on short-barrel shotguns. You have to show your ID to buy ammunition. And, Scott, it gets even crazier. If you're an Uber driver, your taxes are going to go up. If you make so much money, your taxes are going to go up. So they are being oppressive to people who want to work hard and people who have success. That is the Democratic message of 2026. They are anti-progress, anti-success, and the Republican message is that we want everybody in this country who works hard, who are here legally, to thrive.
You know what else is crazy over there? At the same time, they are trying to restrict your gun rights as law-abiding gun owners. the Democrats, these newly elected Democrats in Virginia, are simultaneously trying to reduce penalties on heinous criminals, people who have committed all sorts of crimes. They are trying, so they're doing for criminals, they're trying to get criminals back out on the street, at the same time taking away your right to defend yourself. It's, that is basically the Democratic worldview. It ought to frighten every law-abiding taxpayer in Virginia and anywhere else that's got a Democrat governor right now.
But Scott, let me tell you this: it doesn't even get as worse as that, my friend. When Abigail Spanberger was sworn in as governor, the first thing she did, signing into law, was that the state of Virginia would not work with the federal government and ICE to remove illegal immigrants. So who cares if people are raping people's daughters? Who cares if an illegal immigrant gets behind a car, drunk driving, hits an innocent family and kills all four of them? These people do not care. They're more interested in performative nonsense, and they're more interested in defending people who aren't here legally than defending the darn people who pay their taxes. If that isn't enough to mobilize people to get their butts up this year and vote Republican, I don't know what in the hell else will, Scott. We got to save this country, my friend, because there's too many people who are hell-bent on destroying it, and we can't allow that to happen.
All right, sure, Michael, you're fired up on this Friday. I like it very much. Now it's my job. It's my job to pick the loser of the week. You pick the winner. I've got a long list of possible losers here. Chris Cuomo is a loser. This kid I was on TV the other night, Cameron Kasky, he's kind of a loser. Tim Walz, he's on a long losing streak. Jack Smith, truthfully, kind of a loser this week. But I'm going to go with Michael Fanone, the former Capitol Hill police officer. He got famous because he was a Capitol Hill police officer on January the 6th. He was, for a brief time, a CNN contributor. You see him pop up in the media all the time. In recent weeks, and this week, yesterday in fact, you have seen him go into profane tirades and trying to start altercations in situations. And the reason I am going to designate Fanone as the loser of the week is because even though he's been portrayed as someone that you should trust when it comes to discussion of law enforcement issues and even political issues, it's pretty obvious to me, sure, Michael, he didn't really have the temperament to be a police officer in the first place. And that's that's not my conjecture. That's what we can see with our own eyes. Sure, Michael Singleton, thanks for coming on the show. We'll have you back in a few weeks for more Friday Punditry. I'm headed over to CNN. We'll see you at 4 Eastern on Casey Hunt. And back here Monday, more common sense for the American people next week. Stay warm out there and get your snow shovel. See ya.